Hello, this is Justin Williams, live from Greensboro Coliseum. I'm joined by Matt Carter, who just made the hour-long or so commute back to Durham, where he's recording from home. And we're going to talk about NC State's disappointing 89-68 loss to Syracuse in the second round of the 2021 ACC Tournament. But before we get too far into this episode, this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 5-star reviews. Give Gage Kistner a call today at 480-401-1681 or email Gage directly at gkistner@jfqlending.com. That's the letter G, KISTNER at jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play. You can also listen to us on the Wolfpacker.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. Okay, Matt, let's talk about, well, first of all, it was the first game that you and I were able to sit side by side and watch together in person, which was
like socially distanced.
Right, well, of course, socially distanced, COVID safe, naturally. We were both masked for those that are concerned, but it was nice to watch a game with you. You know, I could give you my little one-liners while NC State was playing, and you could give me yours, vice versa. But so I know kind of your thoughts on the game already, but I guess let's start with the obvious. Syracuse was red hot once again against NC State. I think I put a note in the scouting report that we do for all these basketball games that Syracuse had shot a combined 42.5% from three in the first two meetings, both of which Syracuse won. And today, against the Wolfpack, once again, Syracuse shot 48.3%. That was the best of all three meetings, but something about seeing those red jerseys, it's like a bull. Syracuse just loves shooting the threes against the Wolfpack, and particularly Buddy Boeheim, who's making some national social media buzz with his performance in this afternoon's game. Finishes with a team-high 27 points, goes 6 of 12 from the three-point line, and that was a season-high 6 three-point makes for him. And really, if we're being honest, he shot the ball better than that too, because 3 of them were kind of rub-it-in attempts there at the end in the last 4 minutes. Before that, he was 6 of 9 from 3 when it was still somewhat of a game. So, Matt, was it more so Syracuse just shooting lights out, or did you see some inconsistencies in NC State's defense that led to Syracuse's success on the offensive end today?
No, look, Syracuse, we know, can shoot well, right? They've been streaky this year. But I noted in quick hits, the same Syracuse team that set a school record for made three-pointers in a game earlier this year against Boston College. And it tied the previous school record, which would be the second most now, in another game this year. So this is the third time they've made at least 14 threes in a game. They made 14 threes. So, I think we talked about Syracuse a lot this year. And we've always said the caveat is, look, Buddy Boeheim got a lot of Scott Wood in his game. If he's making threes with his height and length, there's just not much you can do about it with the range. And then you throw in Joe Girard was hot. Help me with the guy who I can't pronounce his last name,
Quincy Guerrier.
Him. He made his three. I mean, Braswell made a 3 at the shot clock buzzer in the corner. He made a couple of threes in this game. I mean, it was just, I've already think I told you it. Syracuse would have beaten NC State probably by double digits on a good day for NC State. You just don't beat teams that go 14 for 29 or whatever it was. I think it was 14 for 29.
Yeah, 14 to 29 from 3.
Yeah. When a team goes 14 to 29 from 3, they're going to win the game. Bottom line.
All 5 of their players that made a 3 made at least 2.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, if I'm a Syracuse fan, I'm really worried that I blew it all on NC State. But I do think NC State compounded what would have probably been a loss with its own issues on offense. Jericho Helms really struggled out of the gate and just never got into the rhythm. DJ Funderburk, I think, had 1 point at halftime.
Yep.
Those are probably your two best players, right? Those are probably the guys you're going to lean on the most in the ACC tournament from a scoring and offense standpoint. And you hate to, pin it on them, but they did no-show pretty much the first half. And NC State were fortunate to only be down 5 points, but the lack of offense and the inability to defend Syracuse, it added up, and it's got out of hand.
Well, I thought your Scott Wood comparison was that's an interesting one. And first of all, you were on Scott Wood's podcast the other day, so go check that out. If you like our podcast, you probably like the conversation that Matt had with Scott, because I listened to it on my way to Greensboro today. I liked it. It was good interview, Matt. But like Scott Wood,
did he bleep out the part about Richard Howe? Did they bleep it out?
I didn't get to that part, so
okay,
I didn't finish. I didn't finish the last 10 minutes. What, did you have something bad to say about Richard Howell? Because I wouldn't.
No. He asked me for what was the most memorable quote, and I said, well, Richard Howell kind of let loose a couple of 4-letter words.
Ah.
And he said, like what? And I said, we'll bleep it out. Don't worry. So I proceeded to say what Richard Howell once said, and so.
Well, now I definitely have to go back and listen. I was about to say, man, don't talk about my guy like that. That was like my childhood favorite. Richard Howe, Beard Gang forever. But anyways, like Scott Wood, Buddy Boeheim likes shooting in Greensboro Coliseum and likes playing in Greensboro Coliseum, unlike his dad. So I tweeted after the game, thoughts and prayers to Jim Boeheim, who unfortunately has to stay another night in Greensboro. But nonetheless, I mean, look, I thought NC State's defense could have been better at stretches. I thought they competed pretty well on the defensive end in the first half. After that first 5 or so minutes, seemed like NC State was a little bit timid to start, maybe. And some of that's being young. I mean, it's the first time playing in an ACC tournament. You've got Cam Hayes and Shaquille Moore, who are both Greensboro natives, who, this is a pretty special moment for them. And maybe the moment was just a little bit, too big to start off. Even without fans, it's still very much a tournament environment. But, defensively, I thought they competed pretty well in the first half. And then second half, they were just letting a couple easy threes to Syracuse that I thought you could see some improvement on the defensive end. But then, NC State showed a little bit of fight after that under 16 timeout in the second half. Maybe they could have tried to go on a run. They were getting it done on the offensive end for a little bit. But every time NC State was trying to put together some sort of run, Syracuse just had an answer. I mean, Keats mentioned it after the game in his post-game comments. I mean, they had 2 makes at the end of the shot clock from 3. And then there's the 4-point play Buddy Boeheim had in transition over Braxton Beverly. And it was just Syracuse's game. It was their day. And I think you talked to me after the game, and I agreed with you. I think Syracuse would have beaten most teams in this tournament field if they played like that against anybody else.
And I do. Interesting stat that I put in quick hits, which you can read online. NC State worst second half performance just in terms of scoring. Largest deficit was I believe St. Louis at 17 points. The number 2, 3, and 4 worst second half performances, all at the hands of Syracuse this season. So something about Syracuse just seemed to wear NC State out this year. There was something about second half. Every game was close at halftime. NC State had a lead in Syracuse. It was a 1-point game in Raleigh. It was just a 5-point game. I don't know if it's the length and the size of Syracuse on the perimeter that does the trick, but they just wear NC State out. And I think it probably stems from the fact that they're a tough guard for NC State. Their makeup is tough for NC State to defend. And so that puts pressure on NC State to probably have to consistently score against their 2-3 zone defense. And that's a tall order to have to score 80-plus points on the 2-3 zone.
And it almost seems like because of the frustration on the offensive end when NC State's trying to figure out that Syracuse zone, and at times they'll show flashes. I thought the ball movement was pretty good early on, and then it got a little bit sloppy towards the end. They had those costly turnovers in the beginning of the second half. I think they had 5 turnovers in the first 4 minutes of the second half. They finished with 11 for the game, but those were really costly, and they came at a really bad time because if NC State was going to make something happen this afternoon, it had to happen in that first 4 minutes of the second half, and that's when Syracuse, really put the hammer on NC State. I think they outscored NC State 16-3 in the first 4.5 minutes of the second half. But the Wolfpack was in a pretty good position at halftime, all things considered, down just 5. I mean, I think Syracuse grew a lead as large as 12 points in the first half, and I told you, look, it's now looking good, and NC State's got to make something happen before halftime, and they did. They looked like they were the team going into the locker room with confidence, and that's what I thought was a little bit mind-boggling to me because it just looked sloppy when they came out of the locker room. The energy, Keith said the energy was good. I didn't see it matching Syracuse's to begin the second half, and then when they tried, it was just the frustration of trying to figure out that zone. They put too much pressure on themselves, and when Syracuse keeps knocking down shots, I mean, it's like every 3 they hit is just another stab wound in your gut, and eventually you can't take but so much. So, disappointing outcome. NC State, the Cinderella run in the ACC tournament, comes to a very, very short ending, and you have to wonder what NC State could have looked like had they been able to close out the regular season with that game against Virginia Tech that was canceled on Saturday. NC State was playing really good basketball, and maybe if they were able to play that game, they could have stayed in a little bit more of a rhythm. We've seen NC State struggle coming off of elongated breaks this season, whether it be to COVID or whether it be to scheduling type scenarios. But I don't know if you have any other thoughts particularly on this game, but we could talk a little bit big picture if you want.
Yeah, like I said, I go back to what I said before. I just think that Syracuse is a tough matchup, and I think we maybe have to appreciate that a little bit more. Probably shouldn't take us 3 times hitting us over the head with us for us to maybe acknowledge that it's a tough matchup.
Guilty as charged for picking NC State 3 times against Syracuse.
I wanted to pick NC State. I mean, if you read our predictions, I think I said, my heart and my mind says pick NC State, but my eyes reads every time I pick NC State, it doesn't turn out too well. So, maybe the layoff didn't help. I'm sure it didn't help, but you just aren't going to be the team that shoots 14 for 29 on threes. And as you pointed out, not all those threes were like wide open, poorly defended threes. I thought when Florida State went crazy on NC State, I thought that was poor defense aiding and abetting.
Right.
This game, there were some defensive lapses. I think, though, this is more tip the cap, Syracuse. This was your day, and I hope you didn't blow it all on NC State.
Well, it's definitely something I'm going to learn from in my young journalism career, that the whole it's tough to beat a team 3 times thing, that's overrated. Look, I mean, like if it's a good matchup, it's a good matchup, and clearly Syracuse is just, NC State's just a good matchup for Syracuse, and it's equally a bad matchup, when NC State sees Syracuse on the other end. And, I thought that's what I wrote in my game predictions. I thought, well, NC State turned the ball over 20 times in Raleigh. Don't expect that to happen, and it didn't. And the only other contingent I said is as long as Buddy Boeheim doesn't keep shooting, I think he shot 7 of 12 from 3 in those first 2 meetings. So as long as he's not shooting over 50% from 3, then I think NC State's going to get the 3rd time's the charm for NC State. Well, that was the kiss of death there because Buddy Boeheim played arguably his best game of his season, if not his career. And you got to tip your cap. Syracuse certainly looks like a tournament team. Speaking of tournaments, that was a topic of discussion after the game with head coach Kevin Keats. I asked him, well, not looking good for an NCAA tournament bid, although he still, wanted to sell the Virginia win a little bit, maybe in a crazy year, you never know. But let's be honest, State's not going to be an at-large selection to the NCAA tournament, but they could be an NIT selection. So I asked him, if you get an NIT bid, will you accept? And basically the answer was maybe.
And then Keith's defense, you kind of asked the question very well, I thought, where you said, margin. We all knew the margin for error for the NCAA tournament was pretty small, but would you consider an NIT bid? He basically was non-committal. I think he. Then later, when you brought up the Virginia, how you mentioned the Virginia win, to be fair to Keith, that was the direct response to somebody else asking, do you think, what's your case for an at-large bid? I don't think Keith's really
totally
harbored much of an illusion of getting into it.
So somebody else asked him, what do you think the selection committee is going to look at this year or something?
Yeah.
I guess that was a little bit more hopeful than I. But
and then, even that, look, I think I was thinking about his answer, and it basically boils down to this: if Kevin Keith was the football coach, I don't think he would have gone to the bowl game. But he wants to see what the NIT looks like, right? Like a bowl game this year was just an added game. There was none of the festivity, the team events, the player gets to go around town for a week and have a vacation with the family at the bowl site. I mean, that was all taken away. So it was literally an extra game.
Right.
And I don't think Kevin Keith is interested in that. If they got a bid, which I don't even know, I'll be honest, I don't know how realistic a possibility that is, but I think his thing is he wants to know what is the NIT going to be. Is it going to be a team-friendly event? Is it going to be worth their while? Or is it going to be, kind of feeling like a drag to go out there and a waste of time and et cetera, et cetera. So I think he wants to get a gauge on what the experience would be like. We know it's going to be somewhere in Texas. I don't remember off the top of my head. Going to be 16 teams, all at large. In the past, the NIT would take conference regular season winners. If they did not win their tournament, this year would have been a lot of teams. There have been a lot of small tournaments, 4 or 5 seeds, getting the conference championship. But that's not the case this year. So I would think NC State has a decent shot at it. And I open it up to you. I'm in favor of it, so I think it'd be good for him. Selfishly, I wouldn't mind covering a few more basketball games too. So, Justin, what do you think? Aye or nay on an NIT?
Well, first to answer your question, or for those that are curious, it's going to be played in Frisco, Texas, and Denton, Texas. So not exactly the Frisco and Denton, Texas. So not exactly the sexiest of destinations for the NIT. It's not like they're going to be playing in Madison Square Garden. But, as much as I'd love to disagree with you for the sake of interest for our listeners, I'm going to agree. I think the NIT would really benefit this team just because, it's a young roster. You look at the freshman guards. You look at, that was their first postseason game of their college careers, and for them to go out like that, even if NC State's able to put together a successful regular season next year, they're still going to be going into the postseason next season with just one game under their belt and pretty sour taste at that. So, I think if NC State does get a bid to the NIT and the event is, held in, I guess in Keith's word, a first-class way, if it's a first-class experience for the team, then why not go to the NIT, see if you can play a few more games, and you never know. I mean, an NIT championship, it's not something that you're going to write home about. It's not going to be something that the fans, are going to remember forever. But, I mean, look at the 2019 NIT champion. We didn't have one last year. I was looking, but then I remembered, everything was canceled because of COVID. But Texas won the NIT championship in 2019. To my recollection, I thought they were about a bubble team last year for the NCAA tournament, probably in the NCAA tournament if it was to go on. And then you look at them this year, and they're a top 25 team, competing in the Big 12, which is one of the two best conferences in college basketball this season, and they would be, a top 4 line seed in the NCAA tournament this year. So it's a process of growth, and I think that if NC State can go play some similarly skilled teams at a competitive postseason venue like the NIT, then why wouldn't you do that? And it also gives the opportunity for the seniors like DJ Funderburk and Braxton Beverly to put on the Wolfpack uniform at least one or if not a few more times. I mean, it would be kind of a bad way to go out, a 20-plus point loss to Syracuse at the ACC tournament. They didn't even get a senior day. So there's a lot of things that I think make sense for accepting an NIT bid. We'll see. When it comes down to it, it's just going to come down to the logistics. And who knows? I don't know what the NIT bubble picture looks like.
We may be talking about a moot point. And there's also, I hate to bring it up, but there's probably a financial component to this. And what's the financial cost of sending a team to the NIT? But if you were a 16-team field, that means if in order to win it all, you'd have to play four games?
Yep.
Four games could be worth it. All of a sudden now, instead of a 23-game season, you got a 27-game season. That's almost a full season. For some teams, that is a full season for your freshmen this year. I mean, that value, we all know next year is going to be about the development of Cam Hayes, Shaquille Moore, Darion Sebron. Their improvement is going to say a lot about what next season looks like. Getting them 4 more games under their belt, as you said, against your peers, so to speak, might not be I don't think it's a bad idea.
And one last note for the NIT resume perspective: Miami coming up with a big win over Clemson in the last game of the afternoon slate for the ACC tournament. Yeah. So that could possibly be now a quad 3 loss as opposed to a quad 4. NC State's only loss in the quad 3 and quad 4 categories. So
so Miami had bumped up this morning from quad 4 to quad 3. So the question was, would they stay in quad 3? And by beating Clemson, I think it's a safe bet that Miami will stay in quad 3. So, we're going to have a lot of what-if look back about this basketball season. When we do a podcast reflecting back on the year it was, we're going to do a lot of what-ifs.
What if they could have beaten Syracuse one of these games? What if they could have finished in Little John? What if this? What if that? But anyways, well, let's wrap this up because the cafeteria at Greensboro Coliseum is starting to fill up and everyone's wanting to dig into their chicken parm here. So let's go ahead and give out game balls. Matt, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I thought Darion Sebron, and I put a note in quick hits. His last 9 games, if you round up, he averaged 10 points and 6 rebounds. Last 6 games, I'm sorry, when he came into the starting lineup full time, he averaged about 10 points and 6 rebounds a game. He had 11 points and 8 rebounds in this game. You see a lot of bright future with him. I think he's the ideal. If Keith kind of goes back to that 4-guard lineup, Sebron perfect for that because he's such a great rebounder. So he showed a lot of promise. His growth from beginning of the year to end of the year was probably as good as any on the team. And so I just thought he played pretty well. So I'll give him my game ball.
Well, your selection makes my job tougher because I'm looking at the stat sheet and past Darion Sebron, I'm not so sure that there's many that are deserving of a game ball, but I'll go ahead and give it to who had the most points on NC State, which was DJ Funderburk. The reason I'm a little bit, glass half empty on my DJ Funderburk game ball is because he was kind of non-existent in the first half. He only got 2 shot attempts, didn't have a single field goal, went to halftime with just 1 point. In the second half, NC State was doing a good job of feeding him. If it was a tighter game, that would have been maybe a recipe to get Syracuse in a little bit more foul trouble. He found most of his success from the line. I think he made, 10 free throws? Yeah, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. 6 rebounds, didn't turn the ball over, had a steal. Of the players that played 20 minutes or more, he had the best plus-minus rating. He was a -9. Everyone else was in double digits with the exception of Shaquille Moore, who had a -6 rating in 16 minutes. But I didn't really, Braxton Beverly I thought was really good in the first half, but he was really just a defensive matchup issue for the Syracuse team because of the length that they present. I mean, pretty much anybody that he's going to be guarding, they're going to be liable to yeah, they did. And so I'll give it to DJ because I thought he played a good second half, and it just wasn't enough for this Wolfpack team. But that'll do it for this podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always listen to us on thewolfpacker.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. When you're on thewolfpacker.com, use promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial for all of our premium content, news, and analysis. Plenty of good stuff coming up. Maybe we'll talk a little bit of NIT scenarios. We'll have some season reflections. Plus, oh, by the way, that women's team that NC State has, they did win back-to-back ACC championships, and they are going to the NCAA tournament as a national title contender. And spring football just started, so plenty of good stuff on the site. Use that promo code PACK60. Follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at The Wolfpacker. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on thewolfpacker.com. And for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.